My name is Sarah Pate, and I would like to welcome you on behalf of the Washington Center for the Book, an affiliate of the Library of Congress Center for the Book, and a partnership between the Washington State Library and the Seattle Public Library. The Washington Center for the Book promotes literacy and a love of books, reading, and libraries. We celebrate Washington's robust literary heritage and shine a spotlight on the contributions of reading and libraries in strengthening communities and in fostering civic engagement. One of our projects is the Washington State Book Awards, and we are thrilled to present the final in a series of online events with our 2020 Washington State Book Award winners with you. We'd like to say a special thank you to our event partner for tonight and for this entire series, the Washington Library Association. WLA's mission is to lead, advocate, educate, and connect, and you can learn more at their website at wla.org. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you Tamar Clark. Since 2013, Tamar has been the Teen Services Coordinator for the Whatcom County Library System, and for the past 2 years, she's been honored to be a part of the Washington State Book Awards Youth Committee. Take it away, Tamar.
Okay. Well, thank you. And thank you, Brittney, and for our guest, Sevi, to be here today. I'm just thrilled. I think it's such a wonderful opportunity to do one of my favorite things, which is to talk about books and stories. And I'm just so excited to hear what we get to talk about today. I want to introduce I have the honor of introducing Brittney Morris, Brittney is the author of numerous books for young adults, including her debut novel, Slay, which was published in 2019 and garnered numerous awards and recognition, including winning the Washington State Book Award for 2020 in the young adult category. Her newest title, The Cost of Knowing, was released last spring. She's also written for video games, including The Lost Legends of Redwall and Subnautica Below Zero. Once a native of Seattle, Brittney now joins us from Philly, and we're so thankful to have you here.
So good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, and also with us today is Sevilla Thomas. Sevilla is an 8th grader, an avid reader, a wonderful artist, as you can see from behind her, and as you'll soon find out, a fan of Brittney's books. Sevi has participated in our Whatcom County Library Kids and Teen programs since 2013, but really her library life started way back when she was a toddler and went to story time. Sevi has graciously agreed to help facilitate and guide us through today's discussion, and so I want to give the floor over to her. Thank you both.
Yeah, so hi. I'm super nervous. I just have to say that first. This is super exciting for me.
You got this.
Yeah, thank you. And I also have to say that I really love your books, Brittney. You have.
Oh, thank
I love
you.
I love your writing style and subject matter and everything. It's just super inspiring for me.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So. Guess we're just going to start here. Okay, so my first question for you is, the VR world you wrote about in Slay seems so realistic. I felt like I was actually there. And I read in your interview with the American Booksellers Association that you hope Slay feels like reading a video game. And I really like that description because that's exactly how I felt when I was reading it. And I really relate to what you said about video games being underappreciated. Can you say more about the potential you see in video games being used as educational tools?
Absolutely. In fact, I'm so glad you asked that question because that's one of my favorite things to talk about. I've always been like a gamer at heart. And when I was a kid, I was a little bit of a reluctant reader at times. And I feel like there's so much underutilized educational potential in video games, especially in the indie scene. I've played games that teach you how to read fast with quick time events. So options pop up on the screen, and if you don't read them fast enough, you're out of luck and you kind of miss out on opportunities in the game. Even down to things like that, that often get overlooked. And so with Slay, I wrote it for everybody Black globally. I wrote it as like a love letter to Black people everywhere, and especially people who are reluctant readers and kids who prefer video games over books. as a kid, I felt like I had to choose between the two. Like I couldn't be a kid who was into video games and a kid who loved to read. I was given the message that those were two different personas, and it's okay to have overlap. It's okay to love both. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of video games even to this day, and I'm really, really happy that I get to write for them now. It's quite a wild ride I've been on.
Oh, yes, that is super cool. And I actually haven't played the games that you've written for, but I might, because they sound really cool.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Your writing is so vivid. As an artist, I wanted to draw your characters and their actions like right away. And the worlds of graphic novels and video games are actually closely related. Have you ever considered writing for a graphic novel?
That's a great question. I'm actually on page 68 of a graphic novel right now. So I'm working on it.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
On that note, have you ever received any fan art for both Slay or The Cost of Knowing?
I have, and it's been incredible. It's some of my favorite correspondence to get. I could just look at it all day. I love it. The graphic novel I'm working on right now is a middle grade in space. So it'll be my first middle grade, my first space book, and my first graphic novel. So we'll see how this goes. Yes.
So I also know that you lived in Seattle for a while, and both Slay and your upcoming book, Jump, take place there. I live outside the city, but I visit Seattle often. What is your favorite place to go?
In Seattle, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love so much of it. I mean, Elliott Bay Book Company is up there. Like, I could just live in there. And Oddfellows, the restaurant next door. It's so peaceful. They have great coffee, great books, great atmosphere. Just love them. Alki Beach is another one of my favorite spots, especially in the summer when it's sunny outside. Just beautiful.
That's cool. Why did you choose to return your characters to Seattle in your upcoming book?
So a couple of reasons. One, because I miss it dearly. We moved out of Seattle to buy a house, and Philly is great in its own way, but our hearts are in the Pacific Northwest. So that's kind of where my next book took me. And then second, with the pandemic and everything at the very beginning, when Black Lives Matter was taking over most of the news and George Floyd's news was everywhere, the commune that was forming in Capitol Hill really just fascinated me. I love seeing so many people get together for such a huge cause and take a stand for what they believed in. And I was just super motivated to write about a group of teenagers doing the same thing in their own way, and especially like a group of techie, geeky teenagers doing like a cryptology puzzle, because like underground heisty type books are exactly my thing. So I was like, all right, here we go. We're writing a book about all of this. We talk about climate change. We talk about classism and the intersection of both of those. We talk about disability rep and racial representation, religious representation. All of those intersect as this cryptology puzzle unfolds in the middle of Seattle. All over Puget Sound. They go into Bellevue. They don't quite go as far south as Tacoma, but they cover a big range of places.
Wow, that sounds super cool.
Thanks.
Yeah. I love that you include people from all over the world in Slay. How did you decide which players would factor into the story overall?
Oh, that's a great question. So I wrote the first draft of Slay so fast. I wrote it in 11 days. And so at that point, I really wasn't putting that much thought into like who would be included and like from which backgrounds and like which countries specifically. But I included Claire because I love Paris, and so Paris was the first place I thought of. So she was put in, and then I decided to add in later Maurice's character, that he would be in Beijing, because this happened. I wrote Slay maybe a year and a few months after I personally went to Beijing and had a really unique experience as a Black person in Beijing. I was treated like an exhibit almost. People wanted to take my picture. They had so many questions about my hair, and it was just a really unique experience. So Maurice's experience as a businessman traveling to Beijing really fit into the story. I went to school in Boston and have family and friends in Boston, and so Boston just made a lot of sense. So John is in the story with his nephews, and let me see, who else am I forgetting? Oh, Mrs. Coleman in Seattle with Kira. I really wanted to talk about classism in Slay and how classism, like, you can be of any class and still be treated the way Black people are in this country for vastly different reasons. Riches and wealth, and even intergenerational wealth, don't save you from racism, unfortunately. And I felt like that needed to be addressed. Mrs. Coleman needed a place to go with Slay as well, and the game helps her and her kids have a place to go after school where they can be safe. So
Yeah.
those are all the different reasons.
I also love that you included all different types of Black opinions. So many of our YA books only rely on a couple of stereotypical archetypes. Did it feel redeeming to write about these different varied characters?
It absolutely did. Yeah, I started with Kira's character, and then every time I would add a character, they would just bounce their ideas off of Kira, and suddenly I had 12 different characters with 12 different opinions on things. And it felt really great to just be able to present them all as, not necessarily right or wrong, but some more helpful than others and others more informed than even others. And it just was really, really cathartic to get all of that out. And even in writing about Kira's feelings about what cards to put in and how people might react to those cards, felt a lot like it did when I was writing the book, because I was like, what cards do I put in? And what opinions do I put into this book? And it was just a really, really amazing experience to be able to put that on paper.
Yeah. One of the other things that really caught my attention was the secret communications between the groups in Slay, like the secret languages and the questions like, do you thaw the meat and whatever. How did you come up with those? Is that like a thing in the gaming community?
It is. I'm so glad you caught that. So when Reddit first came out, the community was so small that people in real life would ask each other, does the narwhal bacon? Or when does the narwhal bacon? And if you answered anything but the narwhal bacon's at midnight, people would know you weren't on Reddit. And so I decided that I would have them ask the question, do you eat meat? And then the answer would be, we meet at dawn. Otherwise, people would look at them like, what kind of question is, no, I don't eat meat, or yes, I do eat meat, and why are you asking me this? So I just thought it was a really fun way to bring like the undercover elements of Slay into the real world so that people can ask each other if they slay without asking.
Yeah, I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I want to talk about the cost of knowing a little bit, because
Sure.
it's definitely super eye-opening. One of my favorite YA books, probably. I couldn't put it down.
Thank you.
I read it in like 3 days because it was so exciting.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. So my favorite part in The Cost of Knowing is the end when the boys face their greatest fears. It was really empowering to watch them go through that. And in a way, Kira also faced her biggest fear. Why was it important for you to address the themes of facing fears?
That's a great question. So one of my favorite quotes in The Cost of Knowing is, joy in the midst of oppression is its own kind of bravery. And bravery, kind of the facing of your fears, right, is just being a joyful Black boy today with the way the world is set up is an incredibly brave thing to do. In fact, when I first started writing The Cost of Knowing, I set out to write a Black boy joy book, if you can believe that. And it quickly evolved into writing a Black boy joy despite book, because I felt a responsibility to acknowledge what a tall order that is to ask of Black men to be open with your feelings and to be joyful and to be honest with the world and express who you are, and, you know, be authentic and seek mental health help when you need it. That's just such a tall order, but it's also very, very important. And I'm so glad that you tied that to Kira facing her biggest fear, because she is at the same time worried about doing nothing and worried about doing the wrong thing. She's worried about making a mistake and letting her entire community and frankly her whole race down, which should be no one person's responsibility. But she ends up facing that in the end in a way that, you know, reflects who she is as a Black woman in particular, and not who anyone else tells her to be. And I just think that's so important. That's my love letter to teens everywhere, is just to be authentically you and stand up for what you believe in, and to be brave in your own way.
Yeah, that was a good answer.
Thanks. Good question.
You seem like a confident person who kind of like follows the beat of your own drum, in spite of like stereotypes and stuff. Does this influence your writing at all?
I am so glad I'm coming off as a confident person. I actually have pretty intense anxiety, including social anxiety. In fact, during my very first panel, my teeth were chattering. I was so terrified. So I think I've built up some confidence in my skills over the years, but I still do, you know, get flustered with speaking engagements of any kind. But in terms of my confidence influencing my writing, I guess I'm perpetually discovering who I am. Like, who I am is constantly in flux, and I'm constantly like growing and learning new things about myself. And I guess I've just gotten comfortable over the years with constantly evolving in different ways. And it's just a really comfortable place to be.
I know exactly what the flux and flow feels like. What advice could you give to someone who doesn't necessarily feel like they meet the typical norms of society?
I guess I would first start by asking them what they think the typical norms of society are, because I've lived in so many different places, and the variety of people that you meet, that, like, I don't think anyone is an island. I've never met anyone who is so estranged from society that they can't find their people. You know what I mean? There's someone for everyone. There's a group for everyone. There's a family for everyone out there. Like, I would just pour encouragement onto that person and just insist that they're not alone. And I'd encourage them to find their people, because there's nothing like it.
Yeah, definitely. So now I want to talk about writing, because after reading Slay, I got really into coding again, which I've been on and off for a couple years, and writing and stuff like that. So I wanted to ask, can you tell us about your writing process? Like, do you plan, and then what details can you share about how you write?
Sure thing. So I think my writing process is a little bit unorthodox. People ask if I'm a pantser, or what is it, a pantser or a planner? And I would say I cross right down the middle, and I'm a planter. So what I do is I come up with a bulleted list of scenes that go in the book. And then in that bullet, I make sure to include why the scene is in the book. So the important thing that has to happen in the scene for it to be in the book. And then the hook at the end that makes the reader keep turning the page. So by the end of my planning process, which I only give myself 24 hours to write, it's a 1-page outline, I have a little paragraph that's about this big of just 10 to 12 bullets, and those are the chapters. And that's all I have to go off of. And then from there, the game is just write the book as fast as possible. Whatever ends up in the first draft ends up in the first draft. My inner editor has been banished. It's just get the book on paper as fast as possible. My anxiety will creep in if I take too long. And so I've just learned to just get it out. So with Slay, I wrote it in 11 days. With The Cost of Knowing, I wrote it in about a month and a half. So I just move really, really fast. Editing process is a little different. That's months and months long to clean that up. but it's very effective for me. So
Yeah, I'd say I definitely probably fall into the planster category as well. I use like sticky notes for different scenes because I can move them around if I want to.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, one of my teachers taught me that.
Nice.
Do you ever put yourself into your characters? Obviously, like Kira. But you ever like put yourself into your characters or get too attached to them?
I feel like each character is a small part of me. So maybe I'm not like 100% Kira or 100% Steph, but there's a little part of me in every character. Yeah, even Alex and Isaiah and Aunt Mackie. Yeah, I guess I see myself a little bit in all of them.
Yeah, definitely put a little bit of yourself into everything you write. How do you handle like self-criticism? Because you said you had like anxiety and stuff, like, you know, writer's block and deadlines and outside pressure where you just can't get anything done.
That's a great question. Usually when I get to the point where I'm just overwhelmed and, you know, I like sensory overload and I just need a complete reset, I will let my husband know he's got the baby for a little while and I'll just go in a dark room and meditate for like however long I need to. I'll start incorporating yoga back into my life, deep breathing back into my life. And if I need to, I'll take a couple days off and I'll push deadlines if I need to, give everyone advance notice, of course. But I think just making time for myself is really, really important when it gets to that point. And I encourage anybody who's feeling burnt out or feeling like they've taken on too much to just be honest with the people that you're communicating with. And I've never had an experience where people have, come back with negativity or criticism or looking down on me for needing that time. So I just encourage everyone to prioritize their mental health that way. It's so important.
Yes, absolutely. I always get a little burnt out sometimes too, and like trying to do certain things for certain people because I feel like I have to. So that's
absolutely.
So this is kind of like a off to the side question, but
all right.
I know you like video games like a lot. Do you ever play like board games or card games? Like, I don't know, D&D or Yahtzee or something like that. And if so, do you have any favorites?
So I played D&D exactly once and got kicked out. So this is what happened. So our dungeon master, that's the title, he got really irritated with me because the parameter that he set was each of us got a familiar. So we all got to pick an animal. We all got to pick a superpower for it, and we all got to name it. And everyone was picking, medieval sounding, feudal sounding animals. People were picking horses and cows and realistic things. And they were giving them, superpowers like telepathy and stuff you've heard of and stuff that made sense for the animal. I chose a Portuguese man of war and I gave it the power of flight and I named it Pasta. And he was like, this is now a ridiculous mission. What is happening? And he just really didn't care for that. And so I kept making moves like that were just way out of the realm of space and time as we know it. And he was like, I don't think this is the group for you. So I never really went back and tried it again. But I had a lot of fun while I was there. And then in terms of board games, Settlers of Catan is like my favorite thing. I think I've only lost one game. And I think it was actually to Rosie Brown. She's the author of Song of Raids and Ruin. I need a rematch.
Yeah. And then can you tell us about your next project at all?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my next project is The Jump. It comes out in 2023. And it's about 4 Seattle teens who take on a cryptology puzzle posted by an underground secretive socialist vigilante group called The Order. They kind of just go all over Seattle solving different clues. This is probably the most action-packed book I've ever written. We've got a grocery store heist and an underground daring escape through a sewer system and a car chase. And I mean, everything's in this book. So if you like tons of action, if you like cryptology, if you like climate conversations and classism and where they intersect, this is the book for you. Comes out in 2023. So.
Nice. I'm super excited for it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, that's all the questions that I have. Thank you for having me do this. I'm such a big fan of you, so this is really exciting.
Thank you. Thanks so much for doing the interview. You did such a great job. These are wonderful questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sevi. That was wonderful. Your questions were great. And Brittney, thank you so much for sharing your work and how you create it with us. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.